Okay, so all my social media handles at Icon Words. I'm going to keep my intro short because my piece is long. I'm a teacher, 18 years, Central Islip School District. Any teachers out there? Yeah. Okay. All right, so this is all of what I do as a poet, as a rapper, is born and bred out of my experiences in Central Islip. Okay? So everything that I do takes place from either my perspective, the perspective of my students, about my students, first person, third person, all the above. This is a little bit of what we as teachers go through from my perspective, being where we are, well, where I work. It's called My Classroom is a Battlefield. The students are both my ally and my enemy depending on me. Let me say that again. My students are both my ally and my enemy depending on me, which explains clearly why my classroom is a battlefield. The teacher and students divided by an invisible line, vying for which side they will reside, vying for a place in my eyes, balanced in their pride, sometimes hidden behind enemy eyes. They try to... It's the first time I'm doing this public. Wait, okay.
You got it.
I'm just gonna rewind.
Yeah, rewind.
Okay.
Good.
The students are both my ally and my enemy, depending on me. Let me say that again. My students are both my ally and my enemy, depending on me, which explains clearly why my classroom is a battlefield. The teacher and students divided by an invisible line, vying for which side they will reside, vying for a place in my eyes, balanced in their pride. Surrounded by minds of different kinds, they're buried behind innocent eyes or sometimes behind enemy lines where I must find the time to fulfill a purposeful quest. The room filled with kids, supplies, and desks, and my assignment is to conquer through best practice that's been written and outlined by the so-called best. Who is this, you ask? Well, go ahead and take one guess. It must be teachers, right? Nah, it's Congress. Those that sit high above the rest with ties on their chest, suit jackets tailored perfectly pressed across their breasts, policy and procedure written for us, the teacher to assess, break it down and make sense of what we know is nonsense. Regardless of the extent that this expense is on our kids, it's quite extensive. Public education's pockets are massive, and companies have figured out a way to profit and make it a business. And their approach is not passive, it's actually very aggressive, capitalizing on the backs of our children's failure, disguised in the name of a positive message. They're selling college career readiness. Their slogan, the future. Tomorrow, today we must invest. But the problem with today and now is such a mess that how can kids think of their future gifts when their present is a curse? The truth hurts. And what's worse is actually denying what works. You see, the problem with education is it's been turned into the dissemination of information and not the actual educating of young minds. And as the students peer from the audience waiting to hear the teacher say something creative, teachers are now scripted and told there's no need for a connection. There's no need for compassion. Just follow the script and teach the lesson. Test-taking skills of the 21st century's education direction. And if our test scores are less than, well, we'll be sure to send sanctions which limit your funding and threaten the future of your whole district's function. It's something. It really is something. Because no one has ever presumed since they've been to a hospital they could just be a doctor. But because you sat in a classroom once upon a time means you know how to teach and run it. Kids aren't clients and schools aren't for profit. We must stop it. Politicians sit about the round table spewing statistics without ever seeing the distress in the eyes of a hungry kid's face. Poverty doesn't matter. That's actually been said publicly out of our elected officials' face. Let that sink in. Let me say it again. Poverty doesn't matter. Poverty doesn't matter. Poverty doesn't matter. It's all about the tests. So get them to pass with no haste. American education is losing. Other countries are beating the United States. So while our kids are home alone and not eating because there's no food on their plates, well, the government spends billions on assessment tests for all 50 states. And the only skill they're assessing is a student's success in passing this test of high stakes. And when they fail, well, that's great. Because the business of failure is actually better for the money they make.
Wow. Yeah.
They have to protect their investment. The numbers aren't real. This whole thing is fake. It's made up. And when the test scores are too high for the lowest schools, well, they just change the cut scores and laugh, affirming that they feel society is filled with fools. And society blindly follows, never questioning these political tools. You don't believe me? Well, let's just look at our schools. Look at our test scores. Our students aren't learning. Look at our teachers. It's obvious they're not working. Look at our schools. America's hurting compared to Finland and China. They say our kids can't compete. Stop comparing us to Finland. All their children are Finny. The school that I work in teaches children from 50 different countries. Some have never been in school and many are hungry, no food in their belly. Their parents stopped school in 3rd grade to work in the field to earn pennies. So they literally ship their kids off to America, hoping and praying they'll make it safely, traveling far, separated from mom and dad to get to the land of opportunity. And as for China, an undeveloped nation, no environmental regulations, in the ocean garbage is tossed. It's all about science and math, no creative thought, and don't ever question the boss or you'll be tossed. People working in factories for less than minimum wage, and well, have you ever heard about gendercide? It's when they used to burn and discard their girl babies, since boys were more valuable in keeping their name alive. So yeah, don't compare us to them either. But let's just look at one more thing they don't want you to see neither. The bottom 5% of schools are not white and they get to break all the rules. The bottom 5% of schools are not white and they don't have to offer the whole school free food. We do, just to make sure our kids have a meal and get to eat too. The bottom 5% of schools are not white and they're under the most scrutiny too. Someone's always watching, criticizing everything we do, and if we don't play by the rules, well, the government will just stop sending money to our schools. Programs get cut, teachers go too, no art and music, just overcrowded classrooms. Are you starting to see a pattern? Am I starting to get through? Because the odds are so stacked against us, what are we to do? First, we must put on our shield and remember why we joined this fight. As teachers, the battle doesn't end when we leave the classroom at night and shut off the lights. As teachers, we must connect to our students. It starts with me and you. A lot of our kids come to school angry. If you were treated like them, so would you. So I lead through example. Simply, I be what I want them to be. Calm, compassionate, honest, and have integrity. I speak in a way I want them to speak. Honest, with pride, and know their worth. I believe in myself the way I want them to believe. I believe in them regardless if they can't see, regardless of the way they act, even if it's ugly. Maybe they've been blinded by society. It's up to me to not take it personally. Their struggle is theirs. I must listen peacefully. So I offer them the best pieces of me. I must remember every day. The students are both my ally and my enemy depending on me. Let me say that again. My students are both my ally and my enemy depending on me. Thank you.
Icon, ladies and gentlemen.